So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Soapbox. You are here to see graphic design around table, and we have some sterling designers from Dumfries to Glasgow in Scotland here. My name is Martin. I'll be the chair for today's session. Subtitles for this workshop are available, and you can see these by clicking on the closed captions button at the bottom of your screen. And yeah, I think we'll just go around and introduce everyone. So if I can ask Jamie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Jamie. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator from Chico, California. I've been in the industry for about 7 years now. My background is in men's apparel design, but nowadays I just do a lot of freelancing work, which is kind of all over the place. So illustration, menu design, branding, I'm doing it all at the moment. But yeah, I've been working with the stove for a while, so that's been kind of my gig as of late. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks very much. And Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel. I'm based in Glasgow. I'm a sign writer, gilder, and lettering artist. So I'm kind of jumping in as like a half graphic designer, I guess, in this chat. I did originally study graphic design at Edinburgh College of Art. I graduated in 2016, and I set up my own business in 2017 in the south side of Glasgow. And I work across all spaces and shapes and surfaces you can imagine, indoor, outdoor, up high, down low. I paint letters on pretty much everything. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
Welcome. And Rachel's got a really amazing Instagram, so do check her out on there as well. And Neil.
Hi everyone, I'm Niall Smillie. I'm a graphic designer based in Glasgow as well. I originally studied, apologies, sorry, I thought I'd turned that off. There we go. It's where to get to. Yes, I originally studied in the University of Ulster School of Art in Belfast. I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and for the last 12, I've been running my own studio called 427, based in South Block in the centre of Glasgow. And we do all sorts of different types of design work, from football shirts to branding to creative campaigns and animation, all that sort of stuff, anything kind of visual. So I'm definitely the old man of the group. So speak up so I can hear you.
Well, thank you everyone and welcome. And again, if you're interested in anyone's creative portfolio or what they're up to, just to give them a Google. They've all got amazing work, and we're delighted that they're in this space. So, Neil, I'll start with you. Just a general question: how did you get into graphic design? The most general question ever.
Most general question ever, yeah. Basically, how far back do I want to go? When I was 14, right, I used to go to this like a sort of summer camp thing in Loch Lomond every summer that my dad was a gymnastics coach at, but it had all sorts of activities, rock climbing and all that sort of stuff. So I went there for years and obviously went to the art class part of it. And I met this guy when I was about 14, and he was from Manchester and he was a graphic designer. And it was like a click in my head. You know, at that point I was very into art and was doing well in all the art classes and stuff, but I guess I didn't really have any kind of direction or know where I wanted to funnel it. And then I met him and he showed me his portfolio. And when I saw his work, because I would have been unaware of graphic designers or what a graphic designer did at that point. And then I saw his portfolio and I went, that's me, that's what I want to do. So from that point on, really kind of from 14 onwards, I then knew what I wanted to do. So I just kind of got the necessary qualifications to go. I'm not the most academic person, so it was quite of a round the houses, convoluted way. Got the kind of school qualifications, went to the Glasgow College of Building and Printing, which is now Glasgow City College, I think it's called now, or something like that. Did print production and quality control for a year. And then went from there, moved to Belfast and done an HND in design there, and then went into the honours degree at the School of Art there, and ended up sort of staying there for about 12 years before I moved back to Glasgow. So that was, I guess it's just that one guy. And I kept in touch with him for years as well, and he's now a social worker. So I don't know what that says about what happens to you when you get later on in your graphic design career.
There's a man's world for you.
Yeah.
Amy, same question. How did you get started?
Was that me?
Yes, Jamie.
Oh, sorry, it's the internet. Well, I think I've always known, like, since I was little, that I wanted to do something in the creative industries. I've always been illustrating and drawing since I can remember. But I went to uni initially to become a video game designer. So I was very interested in the graphics of video games and telling stories through graphics and stuff like that. So I did that for a year. And then I realized that industry just wasn't a good fit for me. It was very like male dominated, and the industry itself is really ruthless. Like contracts are very short, and everyone just workers feel like a bit disposable. It's just very ruthless. So I tried to find the next best thing that sort of infused technology into art, and that was graphic design. So I switched majors, did graphic design at that same uni back home, did a year abroad at Edinburgh Napier, which is how I ended up here, really. I met my husband while I was there. So here in Dumfries, and got my degree in 2017, I think it is. And I've just been kind of freelancing since. Did some work at apparel agencies and, t-shirt companies and stuff like that. But now I'm just kind of a freelancer. But yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I didn't know that. Video games design, that's really interesting.
I still love it. It's just a very interesting field. Like very
yeah, I've heard some horror stories from London to Dundee about startups and 24-hour shifts and things like that, and sleeping bags and offices around video games design. Yeah. Rachel, similar question. I suppose you're now a sign painter by trade, but tell us the story how you led you there.
So yeah, sign painter, but I do a lot of designing day to day, just kind of more specifically for signage. I'm the same as these two. Art was always the thing that I did up until I was in, all the way through school. But I didn't even know what design was until I was probably was maybe just about to leave. They give you like little design but design projects to do in art and design in secondary school, but I was never really told that it could be a job, and there's like different avenues you can go down in design. So I kind of had to figure that out myself kind of when I was in college, I guess. I didn't go to a particularly good school, but it didn't prepare me to go to uni straight from school. So that's why I did a year in college in I think it's in Cardonald, but it was a year of like general art and design, but I did kind of funnel down into wanting to do design work. And then I got a place at Edinburgh College of Art, so I was there for 4 years and living in Edinburgh. And I also did 5 months in Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston. So that was really where I kind of discovered what lettering was specifically, because before then I was doing quite generalized visual, communication work, I guess, because I wouldn't say it's particularly like focused on industry graphic design. It is more like conceptual studies. So yeah, I learned loads about concepts at ECA, and then I went to Boston and I did a letterpress course and handwriting for design and typography. So it was really focused on typography. And I don't know if you thought, Jamie, that was totally different, but I thought it was completely different being in the States. It was very like rigorous, and you do 5-6 hours of class a day, and you have like 3 hours of homework to do every single night. And I was like, what is this place? It's absolutely wild compared to Edinburgh. But it was really rigorous, and I think I kind of suited that at the time, just being taught this whole foundation in lettering. So that's when I really focused down. And then when I came back in the last 5 months, all I did was paint. And it wasn't actually particularly easy to do that. And even though I was in art school, we're kind of in this like office block in Edinburgh College of Art. So I kind of just cleared like one space and was like, I'm going to paint here. And everyone was like, okay, cool. Like it wasn't really set up for it, but managed it, did a finished piece at the end of the year. And then I went to work with Kieran Globell of Globell Signs in Glasgow, loosely an apprenticeship, but we just also like had a good time for a few months as well, just like hanging out and painting in their studio. So that was great. And then I started working for myself in 2017. So that was my whole rounded approach to graphic design, and I'm mainly painting, but as I said, I do a lot of design.
Brilliant. No, eloquently put. I suppose this leads on to the sort of next question around. So Dumfries, there's a bit of a renaissance of sorts going on. People are starting. So we're actually like a printing press town. It was very much known as that for years. We had like Dinwiddie's at the very centre of the town, which is, somewhere in Dumfries in the suburbs or something. There is beautiful, typing machines and everything. And I'm just wondering, Rachel, you touched on there the kind of like the scene around there. How important is a scene in terms of like fueling either your inspiration or your creative career? Is that fairly important from art school to like the kind of freelance working, or do you think you find more going alone? Is that a better avenue? What do you think?
I would say it's so important in terms of, firstly, like the way I got into doing sign painting was mainly through graphic design agencies. Thinking about my friends at Ilka, Front Page, those kind of agencies gave me the jobs, first of all, kind of like trusted me with painting on some walls for some clients to build up my portfolio, to then help me continue to do more work and kind of expand that way. And so that was so important. And I met a lot of them through organisations like Ladies Wine Design Glasgow, Graphic Design Festival Scotland, places like that. So I really, when I finished uni, I just kind of got straight out into Glasgow and was like trying to talk to as many people as I could. And also in terms of being in the sign painting community, there's like a huge network, especially on Instagram, of every sign writer across the world can all talk to each other. So that is like a massive plus to being on that platform. And you can always ask people for advice, just to chat, or like, there's a couple of groups where we just complain about being sign painters and the bad bits of the job, and how kind of overwhelming it can be. So yeah, there's massive pluses to being involved in like a scene in many ways.
Neil, same question. Would you agree? Was the scene fairly important?
Yeah, I think it is, but it's also how you define what a scene can be. Rachel made a really interesting point there about the sort of that sign writer community that you've got. So I think it's maybe not so much a scene as more of a community and being involved with people. And now in the world that we live in, we're all sitting here in different parts of Scotland talking to you, and I think the world's a much smaller place now. Certainly when I first started out in Belfast, the design scene was really quite small, but really good, really nice tight community, probably more than a scene. And it was great. And everybody hung out together, everybody drank the same pubs, everybody went to the same stuff. And then when I came back here, because that was obviously all that I knew. And then when I came back here, and it's a bit bigger and a bit more spread out, but also I kind of felt personally that Glasgow was a bit more closed at that time. It's very, very different now. But at the time when I come back, it was a wee bit more hide your homework kind of attitude. And that's really exploded over the last couple of years. And I think it's important to have a community around you, depending on what you do, what discipline you do, whether it's sign writing, whether it's fashion, whether it's graphics, branding, whatever it is. But you have a community and a network of people that you know, because you never know where collaborations can come from, opportunities can come from. So I think, fortunately, now that we live in the kind of world that we do, your scene or your community doesn't necessarily have to be geographically 1 mile circle around you kind of thing. It can be a lot wider and a lot bigger, depending on what you're interested in and what you want to do. So yeah, it's important, but it's how you define it yourself.
No, great point, especially in the digital age. Define that definition of a scene. It's not necessarily the same pubs, the same communities. It's a scene based upon interest. Jamie, would you similarly agree? Would you think a scene is important?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned, scenes can be literally all over the place now. It doesn't have to be exactly where you live, because I just completed a project for a coffee company back home, and I'll never see the t-shirt I designed probably unless they send it to me. But, I found those connections through the connections I had made back home, my scene back home is still there. So you don't lose those connections, which is kind of fun. But yeah, it's so important to have that community. I think you learn from each other and kind of inspire each other, and you make sure know what's going on, what the latest trends are and things. And I'm still figuring that out here in Dumfries. I think it is a lot smaller than the communities in Edinburgh or back home. So it's a lot more diverse here in terms of the different, there's not just like a pool of graphic designers, there's all sorts of artists. So it's a lot more diverse, but yeah, I'm still figuring it out, but it is definitely important to try to come together as creatives and kind of push each other and learn from each other and all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely important.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You slightly touched on it there and saying that, you've designed a t-shirt for, Chico, California, that connection there. But I suppose, and this is a sort of half-formed question in my head, but in that idea of a career, of starting a career, of, maintaining a career, what, is there any advice you can offer in terms of like sustaining a career or the foundation of a career?
Yeah.
How do you go about it? Saying, hi, do you need a brochure done? Or, how do you approach it sensitively? Because we've all seen bad graphic design.
Yeah.
Do you be bold enough to say,
I know.
I could do better?
I think it all starts with, if you're going to go for a career in graphic design, I would really start with learning the fundamentals, color theory, composition, get all those things down. For me, it was really helpful to always be sketching, get a sketchbook, and just start creating work, building a portfolio of work. And it's going to be frustrating at first until you get better, but you will get better the more work you create. But I think it's important to just create stuff, keep going, get a body of work, and through that you'll get better and you'll learn and you'll have something to show people. This is what I can do. And you'll sort of get connections through that portfolio, I think. But definitely starting with the fundamentals, get yourself familiar with that. So you know the rules and you know how to break them when you want to break them, how to break them the right way. And then you can kind of go from there. But yeah, it's difficult because I think everyone's path into design is so different. It's not like linear. There's no right way to do it. It's just you kind of end up there. Everyone's got a different path. But definitely just start creating in whatever form that may be. It could be painting, it could be illustration, t-shirts, it could be, whatever it is that you have an interest in, and you'll learn through that, through creating. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. It's hard. It's not an easy answer, really, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Neil, any thoughts with regards to that?
Well, I mean, I think getting into it, the only sort of bit of advice that I would give to people necessarily is, and it kind of touches back on Jamie's point you made about doing your video game design and then ending up in graphic design. You got to make sure it's for you, because at the end of the day, we're all creative individuals, and without knowing Jamie and Rachel very well, but I can say that we're all passionate about what we do. If you do this job, you are passionate about it. You have to be passionate about being creative, because it fully immerses you, and you're thinking about it all the time, and it's sort of, you're a graphic designer whether you're in work or whether you're out of work, or whether you're in work or whether you're at home. So if you want to get into it, and you've found your way to it, make sure it's for you. If it's not for you, maybe try something else. It's you've got to make sure that this is what I want to do, because you've got to put your heart and soul into making it work. I mean, I've come across a lot of interesting designers in my time, and one of the most interesting guys I met, and Jamie talked about a convoluted route into design. This guy had the most convoluted route into design, and I gave him a job at a studio that I ran in Belfast, and he's 2 jobs before he had gone and he'd only done like a year's course in design, but his work was incredible. But he was always sketching and stuff, but his 2 jobs before he started in the design company were hand manufacturing in a bra factory, and then the next one after that was repairing tractors. So that was his 2 jobs before he got in, but his work was incredible. So he came in as a junior designer, but he had taken a while to figure that out. When he came for his first job, I think he was 37 or 38 when he first came in, but he'd taken all this time to figure that was out what he wanted to do. So I think you've just got to expose yourself to all different types of design, and if that's something that really gets you excited and really floats your boat, then just go for it and explore it and see if that's what you want to do.
Brilliant. Rachel, same kind of question. Any thoughts with regards to the career and sustaining it?
Yeah, so Jamie was talking about building up a portfolio to begin with. I think that's like so important, and I think that was one of the best pieces of advice I got when I was in 4th year from one of my tutors, was build your portfolio full and show the work that you want to continue to do. So I think up to that point I had all these kind of like little bits of graphic design things I didn't really like, but I was kind of like, oh, this shows this and this, but like there's no point in showing the things that you don't like. And you don't want to do more of. So that's when I started like directing everything towards just painting and just showing what I could do, and picking up like little bits of, you know, a competition brief or something, you know, a certain set of words that just say something that I quite liked, and then taking that and then making it into a painting and just adding, you know, some different effects to it, and you know, experimenting, then led on to a lot of people saying to me, oh, can you actually make this for me? Can you paint this? Can you put that on that wall? So that's a massive part of it. It's just making your own briefs and working things out that way. And yeah, interesting about that guy with his hands. What was it, hand model things and horse and tractors? That's absolutely bizarre. But yeah, I get that as well. Like you have to really have the drive to do it, and that will come across to anyone you speak to as well. So I think that's a really big part of it. Is just keep putting the work out there and keep being, you know, persevering.
Brilliant. To shift gears slightly, so we've kind of touched on this sort of creative, you know, creativity and owning that and being passionate about it. How do you start a creative project? How do you, what's the you know, if you can, as much as possible, be objective about your kind of creative process, but you know, can you guide us through it? And is there any similarities I'm curious to see between everyone? Jamie, how do you actually start a creative project?
Doing that out, I think it depends on what exactly I'm doing. I think sometimes my approaches will vary depending on what the project is. I've started most recently with my freelancing, providing a brief to my clients that kind of asks some really general questions just to kind of tease out the information from them, just to make sure we're on the same page. So I'll ask them for like examples of work they might like or things they definitely don't like, because sometimes it's hard for people to kind of communicate what it is that they want. So I'll ask a ton of questions to try to get all the information from them first before I start designing. But I also really I start on Pinterest a lot just to see what else is out there. Any color schemes I might find inspiring, or any, you know, other designers I might like their, you know, use of texture, or some of the fonts they've used I might find inspiring. So generally Pinterest is always a good place for me to start, at least. Yeah, I'll usually go from there. And I always design way too many mock-ups. I'm guilty of that. So I always design way too many things. But yeah, it's always different, I think, depending on what I'm doing. But generally, safe to say Pinterest is involved. And if I'm able to use a brief, I'll use it. So yeah, still figuring it out.
It's such a great tool, just to kind of get a picture, even if it's I think at the very beginning. Neil, can you talk us through, you know, the world, in the agency world, I suppose? How does it work?
It's not much different than what Jamie says. You know, it's I think there's kind of two constants, and one's communication and the other one's a pencil. You know, I know it might sound very old worldy or whatever, but you know, you get the pencil out, you sketch stuff, but before you even get to that point, you do the communication part. And whether that is having a chat with the client, if they've not provided a brief, and doing exactly the same thing as what Jamie was saying, trying to squeeze stuff out of them and get information out of them. But I don't think you can start any creative project, be it massive or be it really small, without being armed with the right information to begin with. You know, knowing what the client wants, knowing what the person you're working for wants, what they want to achieve at the end of it. And also, you know, Jamie's completely right there, you know, finding out what's wrong, you know, and what's the wrong answer to the question as well as the right answer to the question, and finding out what direction. So all that kind of communication part at the start is pretty consistent, I think, across what everyone does. You know, you can't, no one, if someone comes up to you and says, design me a brochure, and then just walks away, don't do the job. Or design me this and just walks away, don't do the job. Because if you've got no information to work from, you know, we're not magicians and can pull rabbits out of hats from nowhere. You know, you need something to start from. So that communication, and then once you've got that, you get the pencil out, you do a couple of drawings, and then go into the computer from there. You know, it's kind of pretty much the same process, you know.
Rachel, would you agree? Is that similar in your line of work?
Yes, similar, but I think probably a little bit more specific for me, because I know that it's going to be a physical thing. It's going to be a little less kind of arbitrary. You know, what are your goals here? It tends to be like, can you come and paint my shop? And I'm like, okay, can you answer some more questions about this so that I know exactly what it is? Because I need to kind of strike the balance between asking them questions and seeing what they want, and then giving them a quote for that work. And sometimes I've kind of turned up to maybe look at a job and speak to somebody about it, and actually been there for like half an hour, talk to them about it, and then actually been like, well, this would be actually better in vinyl, or this wouldn't even work properly, you know, there's not enough space to do this, blah, blah. So there's a bit of like an in-between thing where I have to have a rough quote for a job and then figure out how it's going to work in the space, what they're asking for. So that means like I'll need measurements and photos of the space to see if it's accessible, all those kind of things. I guess when I actually start to design something, you know, when I've gone through that process of like, this is roughly what it's going to be, this is the process, then I'll ask them, I guess, questions about like what their business is all about and who they want to use their services. If they have a colour scheme already, if they have logos already, there's lots and lots of questions to ask already. So I do have a contact page on my website which says like, please answer these questions, but I still get like DMs 10 times a week saying, can you paint me a sign? I'm like, please give me more information. Like, I can't tell you if I can or not if you don't tell me things. So yeah, it's like an ongoing thing. I think in any kind of design, it's just, there's so many questions to ask in the beginning.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So moving to kind of the clients, our favorite kind of, you know, the favorite world. As far as, you know, for anyone that's watching here today who is not necessarily interested in pursuing a career or getting into graphic design, but wants to know how to work with a graphic designer, is there anything, you know, any advice you would give to a potential client or somebody that's going to approach a graphic designer? You know, how do they go about it? Jamie, is there anything you can impart?
If you've got, I think examples are so important, just because people really struggle to communicate like with words what exactly they're after. So if you can provide examples to a designer of things that you really like or things that you don't, that's helpful, I think, for me at least, to see visually what you don't like. But if you can try to be as specific as possible, if you have a really specific vision, try your best to give that to your designer, because it can be so hard to try to you know, keep providing iterations of a design and we're just not quite getting there. Like, if you can be specific, that's really, really helpful. Or if you're not, if you're open to seeing, you know, letting your designer have free range, that's, you know, let us know what you're comfortable with. But the key, I think, is communication. So give us as much information as you possibly can. And if you've got a vision in your mind already, please communicate that as well as you can. Just because it makes our lives a lot easier, and we'll both be less frustrated in the end, because we can get to your vision a lot quicker, I think. And it is really hard, but just, you know, try your best to communicate. It's, you know, for the designer and the client, communication is key.
Neil, would you agree? And also, I'm kind
100%.
of curious.
100%, yeah. The communication, and because sometimes you work with people, we'll work with clients who have a marketing department, for example. So you're dealing with a professional who knows how to brief a designer properly and communicate. But then we'll also work with somebody that's got a shop who is a great shoemaker or something like that, and they've never spoken to a designer before in their life in this context, maybe. So the more information you can get from people, the better, because it really helps your creative process. But you can also go through a process with people as well, where when you've done work for them, finding out perhaps maybe one of the ideas they didn't particularly warm to and they didn't like. And I think it's important to get that direction from people. I mean, one of the best examples I can give, and hopefully I'll remember this right, because it's, again, really convoluted. I like my convoluted stories tonight. Was a company I worked for years ago and did some branding around, it was a water company. And the boss kept sending back the visuals and sending back the ideas and saying, I don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. And it took us a while to ring him out and find out what he didn't like about them, so it's back to that communication process. And, we had gone down the road of, it's a water company, your branding's probably going to have blue in it somewhere, let's be completely honest here. And he just wouldn't warm to anything. And it turned out that the particular shade of blue we were using in the logo we had done for him was the same colour as a shower curtain in his house that he had tripped on, broke his arm the day his wife had kicked him out.
Oh.
Wow.
How was I supposed to know that?
Specific.
Oh,
Very,
wow.
very specific. But because he had never dealt with sort of creative people, he never had a marketing department, he didn't, it took us a wee while to figure out, and for him to figure out why he didn't like that blue. It was almost a subconscious thing, that I don't like that blue, don't like that blue, but he didn't know why, and eventually we found it out, and then the logo ended up being green or something like that, it wasn't blue. But yeah, it's that communication, and just speak to the designer and tell them what do you want it to do, what's the function, what's the form, what do you want to achieve with it. And we would always really work hard with a client and view it very much as a collaborative process when we work with clients. It's not, we are working for you and then it's finished and here you go, here's that thing. It's lines of communication all the time, open, phones, emails, Zooms, or whatever you want to do. But I think that constant communication with people, talking about ideas, showing things, exactly what Jamie said about showing different things that other people have done. And do you like that? Do you not like that? Because you get a feel for what people's taste is and what they like. But I think that the hardest part of that is when you get to the point of showing people stuff, and depending on what way they want to go, sometimes you get in a situation where they have to go with something that they maybe don't like, and that sounds terrible, but maybe your objective is to do something and this piece of design meets that objective really well. And sometimes a client has got to put their taste to one side and go, you know what, I'm maybe a 60-year-old guy that owns a record label, and I like things that are really boring, but my records are not very boring. I'm maybe an investor or whatever, I own this record label, but this design isn't for me. It's for my target market of 20-year-olds. So they've got to be able to switch their head off that. But you need to know that. You need, again, back to communication. You need to talk about that, and you need to make them aware of these kind of things. So it's just about talking to people. Design is as much about talking to people as it is about creating something visual.
Brilliant. The shower cut was probably the most specific kind of client.
Horrible experience trying to figure that out. Yeah. Honestly, it was horrible.
That was crazy. Rachel, same question. How do you work with clients? Is it,
I think, same thing. Communication. I originally just needs do you have a deadline for this? When you're hoping to have it done by? Sizes. Overall feel of a place, And I also ask them if they like anything that I've designed before. So they'll go through my Instagram or my website and stuff and pick out like a particular lettering style, color scheme, or like effects and things like the connected one down there, like loads of drop shadows, or more like simple ones, script, anything like that. So it's kind of works in the same way as Pinterest does, I guess. And some people do also come to me with Pinterest boards, or work in other graphic designers, sign painters done somewhere else that they've like come across, like maybe their friend has a shop or something like that, and they've seen somebody in London doing this kind of style. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, massively, is communication, even before the get-go. And also, yeah, budgets are always a good thing. If somebody has a certain amount of money to do up a shop, then I'm not going to say to them like, okay, so I'll like put loads of real gold on your window and put all the bells and whistles on it and things. It's like about kind of working to within limitations as well. So yeah, huge amounts of things, but yeah, communication, main thing.
No, yeah, I'm slightly on both sides there, because I'm often the client and I'm often sometimes a designer as well in my field. So I similarly relate. You have to kind of communicate unless you have an established relationship. For example, Jamie, we worked quite closely together. I can we can read each other's minds a little bit more than if it was somebody completely new. And I think relationship building is key as part of that as well. And working with them over the years as well. So a kind of fun question, or not so fun question, what are your kind of pet peeves, whether that be working with clients in a particular thing? Is it like one thing that always comes up and you're just rolling your eyes, or is it a particular thing you keep seeing in graphic design, even in trends, that you're just like, please stop doing that? Or is there some, even in the actual industry itself, is there some, a kind of thing that keeps cropping up that you're just like, oh, I wish this would stop? Jamie, I'll ask you first, because you seem kind of...
There's so many. I think, oh God, where do I start? One of the things that irritates me is, again, coming back to the communication, is if a client says, oh no, anything, I like anything, and you're like, no, give me some specifics, like let's shop this. No, I like anything. And they end up having a very specific vision in their head. So you'll be like, okay, I made this, like, nah, that's not right. It's like, I thought you said, you were happy with anything. So people that have a more specific vision and they just don't realize it, that can be really frustrating, because it feels like you're like trying to guess what's in their head. It can be frustrating for both parties, I think. The other thing is letter spacing, kerning. So if I wish I had an example to show you, but like you'll see it a lot in towns with signage or something, where just letters are not equally spaced. That is a curse. Like I see it everywhere, and now my husband sees it too, because I point it out. Like it is so awful, and it's everywhere. And then one other thing is internships without pay is another thing for people starting out. I should mention, don't do speculative work. Don't do work for free. Like that's my other pet peeve, is people should be paid, even if it's an internship or if you're starting out, you still should get paid for your time. Those are the big ones, but I'm sure I'll think of others. But yeah.
Thank you. Neil, same question.
I'll without sounding like I'm just repeating exactly what Jamie's last comment was, I'll like 100% agree with it. The biggest peeve that I've got is free pitching, is free internships, not lack of respect for what we do. If someone was going to build you a house, you wouldn't ask them to build 3 rooms and then decide whether you wanted to go with them or not, and go, oh no, I don't like those rooms, I think I'll just go with this other builder. Just wouldn't happen. So I don't know where it's came from, but it's been like I say, I've been in the industry for 25 years and it's been around. And we, quite a good few years ago, stuck our flag in the sand and said, look, if someone asks us for free pitch visuals, we're not going to do it. Now, don't get me wrong, people will still ask you to pitch for things, but we're seeing it quite frequently. I mean, we did one recently and we were paid for the pitch. And we've done quite a few over the last few years where the client has actually allocated a budget for the pitch, which is really good to see, really, really good to see, because free pitching is just not an indication of who's right for a job. You know, all it comes down to is who's got the most free time. That's it. And it's not any way to make a proper decision on who you should be working with. You know, your past successes and you as a company should be an indication of who you want to work with. It shouldn't be about doing free work. You know, it's a strange quirk of the design industry, and the sooner it's consigned to the bin, in my opinion, the better. Because it's and the internship as well. You know, you shouldn't be, again, someone could come in for 3 weeks, a month, 6 months, do a really good project for you, and you make a lot of money out of it. So why are you not going to pay them for it? You know, it's not healthy, and it sort of reeks a wee bit of a lack of professionalism within our industry when we're all working really hard to try and show how good we are and get respect and all the rest of it. You know, and that doesn't help things.
No, excellent point, and well made. And across the arts and creative industries, pay people, please. There have been so many scenarios that I've found myself in my early career. Things like this happened. So, very good point. Rachel, same question. Any pet peeves?
Yes, a few. Totally agree with the internship thing. I, at one point, probably fairly soon after COVID is finally away from us, I'll probably take on an apprentice or apprentices, and I don't want to be the person who asks for people to paint things for me for free. I mean, I don't mind like shadowing. People want to come and watch me work, that's fine with me, but yeah, I'm not going to get somebody up a ladder and not pay them. Don't agree with that. On the same side of that, there's quite a lot of chat online about like competition briefs and how those shouldn't exist, especially in the States. I think it's particularly bad because the work that big companies can get from competition briefs actually end up belonging to the company. You know, in the small print they'll say, if you enter this, then all these designs you've done for us, we have the rights to use them. So that's just absolutely shocking. And yeah, it should be just be that you find an artist or a mural artist or anyone through their portfolio that's already there. You shouldn't have to ask them for extra work. So that's just super lazy on their part. I think. I also have a pet peeve about graphic designers. So here we go, guys. So it does annoy me a little if a graphic designer has done work which is then going to be put on a shop front or inside a space, and then I talk to the client and the graphic designer, and they won't budge on how this design is going to look. Especially even if I go in and say like, oh, actually I think that should be bigger for legibility, or this should be over there because people aren't going to see it from here. And there's a tendency to think and kind of, I mean, I don't blame you, like on a computer screen, this looks great, but actually accessibility is a massive thing and legibility. So that bothers me. But normally I haven't really come up across that many times, but it does bother me when it happens. I'm like, I am telling you this so that this is going to work better. So that's a bit annoying. But yeah, also, vagueness, as we've touched on a few times, just coming and just being like, I need this thing done, and then won't answer questions, and I'm just normally just don't reply to the emails after a while if they go back and forward. Like, I don't have time for that. I'm like a one-person band, so yeah, red flags.
Tire kickers. Don't like tire kickers.
Yeah.
Tire kickers, did you say?
Tire kickers, yeah.
Can you explain?
Kick your tires and go, yeah, that looks all right. I'll maybe come back to you about that. Yeah.
Right. I didn't even know that was a thing, but
yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Just on a wee side note as well, just that weird one we were talking about, the free pitching thing, just as a way of an anecdote. Be careful of this as well if anyone's a kind of aspiring designer or a young student out there, because this happened to us, or it happened to me right at the very start of the company, and we were asked to pitch for some stuff. This is before we kind of decided to stop doing pitch visuals, and we got awarded the job, we got awarded the contract, but then the person that we pitched to, the client that we pitched to, brought in someone else's visuals and said, yeah, you were cheaper, can you make it look like that? No. And that believe me, that happens way more than you think it is, because someone will just go, great, they're half the price of these big expensive guys, so we'll just give them their visuals and get them to recreate it. And we said no, We did the job because we did it our own way, but we didn't work with that person again after that, you know, because it was just that's just wrong, and that happens all the time, you know, because it's back to what Rachel was talking about with the competition brief, you know, because there is no, you know, the basic principles of intellectual property are when money changes hands, the client owns it. And until that happens, it's yours. So when you do a competition brief or a pitch project, those are your visuals unless someone pays you for them. You know, that's the very basic principles of copyright. So these guys try to get round that by not paying you and stealing your ideas. So just be very wary of that kind of thing if that ever happens to you.
And it's so tempting when you're starting out to want to do that for free, because it just seems like you want to build that portfolio so bad, and you know, those opportunities look so tempting, but it's just really not. It's not good for you when you're starting out. It's not good for other designers in the industry. It's just, and the client should know better. It's just not to take those sorts of things, if you can.
He values everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it brings everyone down.
Spent years working on.
Excellent point. Just off the top of my head here, so you know, the graphic design industry and working with clients, etc., who may have, you know, particular kind of styles or particular brands and things like that. How do you, you know, so is there any example? I'm just curious, any examples or anecdotes or how you might approach this? Like, at what point do you retain your identity as a kind of graphic designer, but also, you know, is it, you know, in keep with what people are kind of wanting of you? Because you as you know, as either a freelancer or a business, sort of people are drawn to your aesthetic or your work. At what point do you have to, or has there been a point where you have to just say, no, sorry, I'm not the right person for you? Jamie, has that happened?
I don't know, it depends on what I've been doing. I mean, when I did apparel design, I was working with licenses where it was very strict. You know, I couldn't have much self-expression. Recently, when it comes to freelancing, I think I've been pretty lucky. I am quite flexible with my style, which I do wish I was a bit more consistent, but I can be quite flexible for the client's sake. But I'll never do something if I'm given a brief that I feel uncomfortable with, I won't go through with it. I've had people want me to draw tattoos, which I'm not too keen on, so I've turned tattoo illustrations down. But I've been pretty lucky thus far. But yeah, if something doesn't fit right. Oh, another one. I just thought of something. I've had a job in the past that wanted me to do like eco packaging, like some sort of advertisement that spoke about how eco-friendly the product was, and the product was a plastic product, and ethically that didn't sit right with me, so I didn't follow through with it, and I was very upset with the client, and I lost that job. So it sucks, but I stood up for what I believed in. But yeah, I mean, if a job doesn't sit right, I'm not going to go through with it. But I've been pretty lucky for the most part that I think, given my portfolio, most clients are aware of what I do. But it's always interesting.
Rachel, same question. Any thoughts with regards to that, particularly what Jamie mentioned, the kind of flexibility and consistency? Any kind of thoughts?
I've turned down a couple of jobs because they've kind of not lured me in isn't the right one, but like kind of taken me in and said like, oh, come and have a look at this wall or this space we have, under the pretense of it being like a lettering or a quote or something on the wall, and then actually said like, oh, we'd actually quite like something more abstract and colourful and maybe this kind of rainbow thing. And the dreaded one for me is can we get like a silhouetted skyline of Glasgow on the wall? Absolute classic. I will not go anywhere near those kind of jobs. I just don't see the point in them. There's people who work and do that stuff really well, but for me it's not the one. So there's definitely been like wasted time where I've not asked as many questions to begin with, and then actually it's ended up being like more on the mural side of things that I just wouldn't go near, or even something that is better with spray cans. I'm not a spray can artist at all, so I just wouldn't go near that kind of work. So those are that, but that kind of happened, to be fair, at the beginning of my career as well. You know, like when I didn't have as big a portfolio or as much work coming in, I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a go, and then it never ended up working. So just have to really politely send an email saying like, actually, I think this is best suited for someone else, and even link someone else's work that I know, another artist who works in that kind of field, and just says like, you know, this is going to be better suited for them. So that's the way that I go about it in the end.
Neil, same question.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. It's I think we're all kind of in a position where when your work is out there, people get to know who you are and know what you do, and that's how they end up coming to you anyway. So it's quite rare to actually be in a situation where you're maybe aesthetically taken down a completely wrong road. You know, I don't think in 25 years, I don't think I've ever been in a position where, you know, you say, oh, I don't think I can do this because it's not aesthetically right for us, because there's a reason someone comes to you in the first place. Don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of people that have came and you don't want to work on the project for whatever reasons, you know, be it like Jamie mentioned, the ethics behind their company, who they are. I mean, there was a few years ago, a betting company approached us and I wasn't comfortable with it at all. Wasn't comfortable about doing the work. You know, so certainly if you have views, moral standpoints, or a position that you're in, you know, again, it's back to what we talked about earlier on. We put our heart and soul into this job, and you've got to be happy doing it. And if there's a job that comes in and you can see right from the very beginning that it's not going to sit well with you, don't do it. Just don't. You know, it might be horrible for you. You know, you're maybe looking at it and it's a few £1,000 or it's 500 quid or whatever it is, and you're looking at it and you're going, oh, I could really do with that money. That would be really good to have that. Or it's maybe even we've been in a position where we've been approached by high profile companies, but it's just not right. Because at the end of the day, you've got to go home and sleep at night, and you've got to be proud of what you do, because you're going to pour your heart and soul into it. You're going to pour your heart and soul into it. And if you pour your heart and soul into something that's horrible, then you're going to feel bad about yourself. You know, so just don't take on things that don't sit well with you. Because it's, you know, and I'm sure the guys are exactly the same, because the way that we've kind of built the business up over the years, and I've built my career up over the years, is a lot of it is recommendations and people talking to you. So if you do one type of job for one person, they'll know another person that does the similar type of thing. They hang out with them or whatever, or they've got their own community, back to what we were talking about earlier on. And they'll say, oh, this person did a really good job for me. Why don't you go and speak to them about that? And all of a sudden, you know, you didn't want to do a job for a company who's got plastic packaging, and all of a sudden you've got 3 companies that want plastic packaging. You know, it's you make a rod for your own back, and you end up being in this world of doing things for people that you maybe don't want to. You know, so you know, because you're passionate about it, take on stuff that you want to do, you know, that you don't have any issues with.
No, excellent point, and thank you for all answering quite honestly with that. So just in terms of graphic design, are there any designers even currently, or, you know, that you refer to, you know, that you still find yourself getting inspired by? Are there any ones or any particular agencies even that you're just constantly looking at and going, yeah, that's the kind of thing? Jamie?
Oh gosh. I definitely have a few illustrators that I'm constantly looking at for inspiration. Tegan White is my absolute favorite illustrator. She's very heavily influenced by nature, and I've definitely looked up to her for the past few years, and kind of taken some of that gritty style that she's got and sort of infused that in my own work, and just really love her stuff. And she's an illustrator. She's not a graphic designer, but I still find it really inspiring. And Andrew Fairclough of True Grit Texture Supply is wonderful. That whole True Grit company is amazing for inspiration, I think. Trying to think of who else. Can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
It's fine, even if there's, you know, you mentioned an illustrator there, like artists even that you refer, or movements even that you refer to.
Jessica Rue is the other one. And then, gosh, what's the other guy's name? Ken Taylor is another illustrator that I absolutely love. Got very intricate work. Yeah, a lot of my inspiration is illustrators, not so much graphic designers. But still, that's all I can.
If you think of any more, just pop them in the. Rachel.
Similar to Jamie, I think that mainly it's sign writers and mural artists and people who work to a larger scale. I really like those kind of work. So like sign writers who are like my contemporaries, a lot of them who I got to meet in Chicago for the Pre-Vignette show a couple of years ago, and at London Letterheads. I'm like, it's funny how you can follow somebody on Instagram and really like their work and comment and stuff loads and have a bit of back and forth, and then you meet them in real life and you're like, oh, we're friends now. This is great. I think like the sign writing community is really good for that. So Vanessa Power in Dublin, she's a massive inspiration for me. She started just a couple of years before me, but she's done some great work recently. Hannah Whaler in London, Hannah Sunny Studios. She does some really beautiful script work. Shelby Rodifer she used to be based in Chicago, now she's further down south in the States. She does these amazing banners that she makes herself out of like silk and trimming and stuff like that, and she paints directly onto fabric, which I think is really beautiful. And also Pander Design Co in California, I think they're in San Diego. They do, their whole thing is about like telling people how to not be not be like beat down by people in your work. So they do murals like all across the States and the world, and they also do like a lot of work with mural artists, like like webinars and stuff where they say like this, you shouldn't be charging less than this, and think about that in your work. They also give out contracts and things as well. So I really like their approach to it, in that you can make it into a business and it's not like you have to be a starving artist constantly. So really love their work. And closer to home, my old boss Kieran Globell and Conzo do really good, really funny work that fuses together like illustration and typography work of Kieran's, and it has like such a clever style, and their messages are always like dead funny as well. And Cobalt Collective, the gals are my pals based in SOG3. They do some brilliant work as well. So those are the Glasgow-based ones that I love to look at too.
That's great. Neil?
Well, I'm probably more of certainly at the start of my career, whenever I started out, it was in design, it was the era of, graphic design had kind of just exploded properly in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and it was the era of the rock and roll designer. So, individual designers were superstars within the industry and beyond as well, so people like Neville Brody and David Carson and Ian Anderson at Designers Republic, Stefan Sagmeister, all these guys who are now kind of semi-retired and doing the talk scene around the world. Wherever you go, they always pop up somewhere because they've made their millions now, and they're quite happy to sort of do a talk and then go for a surf afterwards, kind of thing. I'm looking at you, Mr. Carson. But now, in terms of sort of now, it's probably more agencies that I look at that I get inspired by, and individual companies' work, studios' work. So people like Manual in San Francisco, Franklin in New York, Pentagram, Dixon Baxey. I really like Only Studio in Manchester. I've seen a lot of their work recently. I met them at the Roses Awards a couple of years ago and just sort of made aware of them by then. They're really good. Studio Dunbar, Hey Studio, Hot, all these kind of people. So I think any advice you can give to people is just lift your head up and look around. There's plenty of inspiration out there, and you'll find what you like, and just lift your head up and look about and see what's around. Because I remember, whenever getting inspired by these designers when I would have been studying, it's going to sound really old manny, but you went to the library, you went to the art school library, and you got the books and you looked at it and you went, wow, this is incredible stuff. Look at what they're doing. But now you can just pick up your phone and have a look around at whatever you want, so just lift your head up and look around, because there's so much beautiful work in the world. You can be inspired by anything. It doesn't have to even be designers, like you mentioned, Martin. It can be anything. So yeah, but that's what kind of gets me going at the moment.
I would echo the library thing. I remember going in there picking up a 60s book that was about this size, like A0 practically book that was just opened up, and it was just full 1960s sort of spreads of Jimi Hendrix with the sort of, the colours coming out and everything, and like that beautiful print. We have a couple of questions which would be nice to cover while there's time. So this one is from Amin, and they ask, what advice would you give to a final year uni student searching for a job around graphic design? Like, where do you go to find jobs, and how can I appeal to companies to stand out? Thank you. I'll throw that open out to everyone, if there's anything immediate.
Very good advice. Well, have a good portfolio to start with. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this, but make sure your portfolio is shit hot. You can bleep that out later. But yeah, have a good portfolio, and whether that is a website, whether it's a physical book, whatever it may be, and make sure that it reflects your work, reflects how creative you are, and where you want to go. In terms of looking for jobs, you've just got to look at companies, look who's looking for work, look at design companies, and where you want to go with it. But also, don't be a bit of advice. Don't be too disheartened, because you tend to find that, I don't know about Jamie and Rachel, but certainly when I started out, I went through, it's going to sound terrible, but I went through, I think, about 5 jobs in the first 4 years of being out, because I was looking for the right place to spend a bit of time, and you sort of go and you go, right, I'll go work for them, and then maybe it doesn't quite pan out the way that you want it to, or you just, let's be brutally honest, when you come out of art school, you think you know everything, but you actually know nothing. Mm-hmm. You know nothing. And when you start working, that's when you start learning, that's when you start properly learning. So I think as I grew and I learned more, I discovered more about myself, and then decided, right, okay, this isn't right for me, and then went to work and went around a few places. And most of my friends in the design industry are pretty much the same. Their first 5-6 years within the industry, they've kind of dotted around different jobs to find somewhere that you're comfortable with and you find working. So don't be disheartened if you go and you find somewhere and it's like, well, hey, it's great. And then after 6 months, you're like, oh, this maybe isn't for me, because that's just the way it is. We've got a huge turnover in the industry of people moving around. It's, I think 18 months is the average from the last thing I read in Design Week, the 18-month average within a design company. And that's just because people grow and progress and they learn stuff, they learn new skills, they learn more about themselves, and then they go, right, I want to go and try something somewhere else. So but have a really good portfolio, and make sure it looks professional, it looks well put together, because I love my anecdotes tonight as well. I'll give you another cracking anecdote as well. There was a guy, this was in my previous job before I set up 427, and there was a guy come in for an interview into the boardroom and literally threw his portfolio down the boardroom table and sat and put his feet up on the table. Oh, right, completely arrogant. Thought he was it. Thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. And I didn't. I just closed his portfolio, gave it back to him, and said, "If you wouldn't mind leaving, please. I'm not even interested in speaking to you." So be professional about what you're doing and be comfortable, but not completely arrogant like that guy.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'd say the portfolio definitely is. Again, we can't stress that enough. I don't think, because the past few times I've been hired by actual big companies, it was the portfolio. It wasn't the uni I went to. It wasn't the education. It was the portfolio. Really, they didn't even care if I could use some of the design programs that they use, because that can come later. They want to see the work that I've been able to produce. So really make sure that portfolio is polished and really reflects what you're capable of, because that's what gets you the jobs. That's really what gets you attention. So I have to add just portfolio.
Excellent. Slightly connected here. It's just a question that's just come through. if someone can develop a good portfolio via out of school learning, do you think someone could get into graphic design without having to go to art school or have formal art qualifications? From my own part, I do graphic design sometimes as a kind of almost a hobby, to be honest, but sometimes there is work involved. I didn't go to art school on that front, so I used YouTube. I absorbed books, etc. But I'd be interested to hear from the panel, because I think the art school process, whilst it's useful, and you walk away feeling quite confident in terms of your practice and your ability. Am I right in saying the learning, especially within graphic design, it doesn't stop? So, any comments on that, Rachel? Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say that I learned the most about actually working on briefs and projects during my summers when I do internships when I was at uni. I think, like, as I said before, like the conceptual stuff and doing longer term projects where it was really developed a lot, and a lot of sketchbook work, that was like ECA, whereas in the real life I totally learned how to work an actual brief client project when I was doing internships. So that was like a really big learning point. I had something in my head there and it's totally gone. Yeah, so the conceptual stuff versus the technical stuff, that's a big difference. I think it's entirely possible to just get yourself started without having a graphic design degree. I mean, nobody's asked to ever see my degree being a sign painter, but like that's maybe a bit different. But yeah, not necessarily, I don't think.
I wish they would.
I think you can definitely do it. You can do it. Back to the tractor and bra guy. You can definitely do it. At the end of the day, what art school does is it gives you a knowledge base.
Yeah.
But it gives you it in a formal setting. So if you get that knowledge base somewhere else or in another way, it's not any different. At the end of the day, it's back to what we said earlier on. It comes back to a portfolio and being able to prove that you can do the work. If you, and I've had CVs from people when maybe there's been a job available and someone has literally just said, I want to do graphic design, can you give me a job? And I'm like, yeah, but can you do graphic design? I don't care. I personally have never asked for anyone's qualifications, and I've never been asked for my qualifications once. But you've got to be able to prove that you can do it. And however mechanism you've used to get to that point doesn't really matter. You've just got to be able to prove that you can do it and you can do it well. Because I think if you just went up to a company and said, I'd love to be a graphic designer, can I start work with you tomorrow? It'd have to be the biggest graphic design company in the world that can carry you for 2 years while you learn your job. So you've got to be able to, whether you've done it out of school, you've done it at night, done it at night classes, whatever way you want to do it, you've just got to prove that you can do the job.
Excellent.
My two art directors that I had at the apparel company that I worked at, which I'm sure must have been millions of dollars. That art director never went to school. And he was a young guy, and he was in charge of the whole young men's department and the whole team and everything. And he had no formal education, and his designs were beautiful. And some of the people I worked with, a lot of them never went to school either. One of them went to formal art school, did like actual illustration and painting and stuff. And here he is being a, successful graphic designer. So I think school is definitely very useful. If you've got, you have no idea what you're doing, you definitely need to learn somewhere. But at the end of the day, like you guys said, no one's asking really for your qualifications. It is the quality of your work, your character. And I think definitely that portfolio again is if you can do the work, that's what they want to see. So
it's quite a common thing, because there's that, without getting deep into psychology, there's that thing that hangs around our neck, being creative people. We're maybe not the most academic in the world, but you need academic qualifications to get into art school.
Yeah.
So it's like there's those two issues there. So somebody just could be the best designer in the world, but they've got a C in maths and a B in English, and they've not got in somewhere. So what?
Yeah.
You know, so it comes down to you preparing work and being able to show people, look, I can do this. You know, so the art school isn't essential. It isn't essential at all.
Excellent. You and I'll return to your question last. Kirsty has asked, how do you feel about the rise of free graphics available online and design websites where people can choose templates and make their own vectors? Rachel, any opinions on it?
I would say it doesn't touch on my work all that much, because those kind of websites like thrive on people just saying like, oh yeah, I could just do this myself and then just throw it together, whereas like to actually paint a sign, there's like the physical aspect of it and like actually making it last and things outdoors. So I think I have a good advantage in that. I mean, apart from like, you know, printed graphics companies like big plastic signs, that's my main competitor. Not competitor, but you know, the dominant thing taking over the work that I would do. I think that's like the kind of similar thing for graphic designers, is like free sites and things like that. So would love to hear what Neil and Jamie think about those things.
How long do we have? Do not get me started. I think, now don't get, there's a slight sort of angle to this in terms of the website template thing. And the website template thing is very, very useful to a certain degree for people with certain budgets. And I don't have a problem with that, but it's when a client maybe doesn't get a professional visual person involved in that and does it themselves. That's where it falls down. It's not, website templates don't fall down by the technology, because the technology is always brilliant behind it. And you know, the car works, it's the person that's driving it that's the problem. And you know, the people that say, oh, I can do that myself. Well, you know what? I can put 2 bricks on top of each other, but I'm not going to build my own house. So, you know, if you want to do it yourself, then on you go. You know, one example I could give you was an acquaintance of mine, not a friend, but just someone I knew, had started up their own company. And he came for a quote, and it was a plumbing and heating company, but he was operating at a, let's just call it a Rolls Royce kind of level. He was an expert at what he did, and he was going to charge Rolls Royce prices. And I gave him a quote for the work, and he said, look, I don't have enough money for that. I'll get a clip art guy in dungarees with his thumbs up, and I'll use that for my logo. So I was like that, you know what, if you can't afford it, it's absolutely fine, crack on. And then 12 months later, he came back and said, look, we need to have a discussion, because he had been using this logo, and he got to the point where he was getting loads of people were wanting him to quote, because he looked like EasyJet. So people thought they were getting something for cheap. So they would get him to quote, but then he was giving them a Rolls Royce price. So he wasn't converting. He was only ever just quoting people. He wasn't getting any jobs. And I said, well, that's because you look like EasyJet, but you're charging British Airways prices. Oh, right, okay, I see what you mean. Right, okay, maybe, yeah, okay, yeah. So he stopped using his little guy clip art plumber and his dungarees kind of thing. So so all these kind of free things, in my opinion, you know, taking the website thing out of it, because it's a different thing. It's people using the technology a wrong way. You take that out of the equation, see all the free vectors, the free, you know, come on Fiverr and get a logo in 2 minutes, all that nonsense. All it does is devalue what we do. All it does, you know, if you went to an accountant and he'd done your books in 5 minutes, you'd be a wee bit worried.
Yes.
You know, so it just devalues what we do as a service, and people are in it most of the people that start these kind of things, they're just in it to make a quick buck. That's all they're interested in. You know, in 2 years' time, they'll have started whatever the next big thing is, and they'll be making money off that. That's not in the design industry. It's something completely different. You know, flying cars or whatever it is. They'll just go somewhere else. You know, the people that do these kind of things, I think it devalues what we do at the end of the day.
Jamie, any further thoughts to add to that?
Oh yeah, it definitely devalues. I think you're spot on with that. What would I add? I think, I mean, people can use these. They're useful, these services and these tools and things, but we can definitely tell you've used them. I think your clients or your customers and everything, they can tell as well. I know when someone's done something themselves, and it gets the job done, but it definitely doesn't look all that great. Tons of the restaurants here in town, they've designed their own menus and things, and they obviously it serves a purpose, but there's just something lacking. And you pay a designer, you're not paying just for the graphics that they make. It's they've got experience. They should have the expertise to be able to help this graphic serve the right purpose. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but you can definitely tell if you've used one of these services, and they definitely lack that sort of charm and bespoke feel to them. And they're not as effective as something that's been designed for you by someone with experience, and with the knowledge to create something that serves the purpose that you need. So yeah, I'd be wary to use them, and would always encourage someone to get a real person on board that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when people do things, be it a menu, be it whatever it is that Jamie's talking about, they're wanting to communicate with an audience. And when people buy these things, they're designed for anyone in the world to use it in a mass audience. So you can't expect to properly communicate to your audience and relate to them and communicate to them in a way that they understand when you're just, you're using something that a restaurant in Turkey is using and somewhere in Alaska, and you can't if you use that kind of stuff, you can't expect spectacular results for anything that you do.
No, it's an excellent point that you made in terms of the anecdote there, that the point of a graphic designer or the visual communication is to accurately communicate your brand or your identity. And when you're utilizing something that's free, that's 7,000 other people have, the clip art, God forbid, but using that as your kind of tool is you're doing yourself a massive disservice. However, just to comment on the kind of some other uses of that free vector software, I have seen it used in social media and things like that, but a graphic designer can provide you with templates to use that are accurate to your brand, to your color scheme, to all of that stuff, and provide you with a branding pack in order to best utilize and stand out. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff these days that looks all the same, because they're using the same things. But to say, I'm not going to get carried away, but from a kind of starting out graphic design, they can actually be quite useful. I myself used things, free, or plug-in kind of things that just to play around with kind of layout and type, because I was daunted by Adobe software and it terrified me. But if this is just something that you want to play around with, make up a band and do a gig poster, there can be quite fun. But if you're trying to work as part of a brand or accurately communicate something, don't use them.
You always run the risk when you do that. If you're downloading, you go into one of the places and you type in for whatever a logo or something like that, circle logo, and you use it. If you end up doing that, then you run the risk of it getting used somewhere else as well. I've seen it happen. I've seen it once, and I can't remember the exact examples, but it was 2 48-sheet posters right next to each other, and they'd obviously downloaded the same vector image, and it was 2 completely different things. It was like a meat company and a haulage company, and they'd used the same roundel as part of their logo, and they obviously got it free from somewhere. So if you do that, it's your own fault.
Yes. And final question comes from Ewan, which is quite a big one. What advice would you give to your younger self? I'll go with Rachel first for this.
Good question. I would say that, as I said before, perseverance is the thing. Also, I think when I first started out the sign painting route, I did have to put some things in the back seat, in the back burner, or like kind of sacrifice some things in order to work to what I wanted to do. So it wasn't as if I could you know, like rent my own flat at the same time as having a studio space and building up my company. So it was like when I moved out of uni, I just moved back to my parents for like a year and a half, and I absolutely love my parents, but I also didn't want to live with them. So that was a big part of when I finally was able to like generate enough income every month and I was stable enough with the work coming in, then I like was able to then get my own flat and the studio spaces, and now I'm in a bigger studio space. So it's like the perseverance of like keeping going and knowing that it's going to eventually work out because of the hard work and luck and putting yourself out there. That was the big thing for me, is it just all goes at the right time and you don't have to kind of rush things when you're first starting out. So that's what I would say to myself.
Excellent. Jamie?
I think I wish I trusted myself more a bit in the beginning. I really struggled with labels, like, am I a graphic designer? Am I an illustrator? Am I a clothing designer? You know, I really struggled, especially with uni, because they've had such a strict vision of what a graphic designer is, and I still didn't quite fit that mold. So I really struggled trying to figure out what I am. And in the end, I can be all of these things. I think so many of the creative fields are kind of overlapping. You know, you can be an illustrator and a designer and a photographer or something, kind of all weave these things together into what you do. And I just, now I'm a lot more comfortable saying I'm both a designer and an illustrator, but before I really struggled with that. But I think having, you know, not being just one thing is amazing. You can, you know, it opens you up to so much more work, and it gives you your own style and stuff. So yeah, if I wouldn't worry too much about labels, I guess. So you can be whatever you kind of want to be and still be a graphic designer. You know, there's so many different avenues you can go with it. So yeah, I hope that made sense. But
Absolutely. Neil?
Yeah, there's too many mistakes to cover in one question, I think, over the years. I think probably the best bit of advice, but it's a bit of advice, but it's the kind of thing that you only learn with hindsight, is over the years I've worked for a lot of, and I can't find any other way to describe it other than geezers, guys who run design companies or run agencies, advertising agencies, and they're just slimy geezers, and they're out to screw you over, you know, and you know, kind of promise you the earth and then give you a wee pot with a plant in it. You know, and it's been able to spot those kind of people, you know, spot when you get an opportunity placed in front of you, you know, to maybe go and work somewhere or work with someone, to be able to see what they're about, maybe do a bit more due diligence on the actual company themselves or the people themselves, and go, you know what, is this the right place for me to go? Because, you know, I've made a couple of errors, not too many, but a couple in the past, you know, going to work for people and you realise very quickly that, man, this was, and it's not necessarily creatively the wrong choice, it's just the people that are at the top of the tree within that company they're just out to shaft you, and they don't care, you know, about what you do. You know, you're just a number, you're just there. So being able to spot that kind of person would probably be, you know, if I could transport myself back into the past. But you know what, at the end of the day, you learn something from it. So
Absolutely. Well, that's us at time now, and just as a quick kind of summary, I've taken some notes here which we'll share with on the line as well. But one of the strongest things that came out was build a portfolio. Definitely invest in that. Make sure you're happy with it. Make sure that you're you know, putting it out the right places. Communication is key whenever working with clients. Make sure, you know, that we kind of explored various different ways, and get armed with the right information. I think somebody said, one's communication, the other a pencil. I quite like that quote from Neil. Give examples, be specific, let them know, and generally have a presence. Persevere. This is the creative industries. That should be on the head of Creative Scotland, right on the right on everywhere. Persevere, or like is there not a song called that as well by the Proclaimers? So yeah, And yeah, once again, communication is key. So that's just as at time. I'd like to thank each of the panelists. Thank you, Jamie, Rachel, and Neil. If you want to check out their work, please do. You can just find them on Instagram, Google them. It's 427-0427 for the Google. I can't remember exactly what your web address, but I'm sure they'll pop up. And yeah, Rachel Millar on Instagram, Jamie Stryker on Instagram as well. So. And thank you all very much. It was really inspiring and great. To attendees, please, I'm just popping it in there. Once again, please fill out the form. It really helps us so we can continue having conversations like this. And once again, thank you, panelists. It was really great and really lovely. It's one of my favorite subjects in the world, graphic design. And it's just so nice to speak with like-minded people as well. So thank you.